Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. The design of the Beers Consolidated Mines Venetia underground diamond mine in Limpopo has ensured the provision of an automated driverless horizontal truck haulage system in its workings. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
De Beers Venetia project will have similar levels of automation to the company's formerly owned Finch mine in the Northern Cape. What will this entail?
Well, you'll say, look, Ma, there's no driver in that truck for a start. And that's the experience I got when I went to Finch. I was on the level where they got this automated haulage, and I said, I can't see any driver in that truck. They said, no, because there's no driver. This is all automatic on the loop, and carrying the ore and tipping the ore, doing all that in an automated fashion. So it's been going on for a long time. It's proven technology. In fact, they were quite pioneering in those years, to start automating in that fashion underground at the Finch mine in the Northern Cape. But of course, that has been sold to Petra. And you can see Petra is doing quite well with the output that they're getting, also probably continuing with that automated base that they've got. So now that the Anglo-American controlled De Beers, because it's a different era now. That old era was, still attached to Anglo-American, but not in such an intense way. It was the Oppenheimer family that led De Beers in those days of the Finch automation. And I remember going down there with Nicky Oppenheimer and, sort of looking at all these new ways of doing things. Now, of course, it's under Anglo control, but what they learnt at that Finch mine, they want to take whatever is still proven and feasible into Venetia mine, have that same sort of level of automation. But they say they might even go much further because, technology is changing so fast now, it's advancing so quickly that, as you can see, the last comment of the Wall Street Journal was that, these mines are going to be eerie places with no people. And I'm sure that there will be a lot of interesting advances in the Venetia mine. They've still got to take their final decisions on the technology they use. But in the design already are these driverless trucks in the driverless automated loop that will be in operation at Venetia, which goes to about 1,000-meter depth.
So it seems we must start encouraging our children to play with remote-controlled cars so they can work there.
Exactly.
Yeah. When can we expect the mines to start producing diamond?
Well, the journalists pushed them, are you on schedule, are you on budget? And they were keen to say they're very much on schedule. Of course, they don't want to announce the rooftop that they're on budget, because if they now slip off, it won't be the easiest of things, and they still got a long way to go. But certainly on schedule to come out in 7 years' time. So it shows you how long these mines need. You've got a new project. It's 7 years before you see the first cash come out of there. Of course, Venetia is a very profitable open pit, and there's still a lot of cuts to be done. So it's got a lot of life yet in the open pit section. But because people plan for the future, they're going now underground. They're going under that pit, as they always do in these diamond mines, which sort of go down like a cone normally. And you then got to start working at a lower level, and it's no longer economic to use the open pit method with all those big heavy ore trucks going down. Becomes too distant, and the economics is then overtaken by going for the block cave method, and you go underground. And it's a well-proven method. They're doing it at Finch, they're doing it in a lot of places, and they'll probably also do it now at Venetia. But of course, time is on their side as they build the decline. I think they're down to about 100 meters at the moment, and they've got to do 2 vertical shafts there. They will still be getting fantastic cash coming out of the Venetia open pit. It's a very profitable, lucrative business there. And South Africa is producing about 5 million ounces out of the De Beers stable now. What do I mean ounces? It's carats coming out of De Beers a year. When I first used to interview them, 8 years back, maybe 10 years back, they were producing at a level of 13 million carats a year, going to 15 and 17 million carats. But of course, De Beers looked at all their assets and said, look, we want to go for the highly profitable ones. Those that aren't the Rolls Royces, we can then dispose of. And the company which has bought most of them is the London-listed Petra Diamonds, which is doing very well with Cullinan, Finch, and a few others that it's got from the De Beers stable. And De Beers is really largely reliant in South Africa. Of course, they've got Botswana next door, on Venetia, which has always been highly profitable and which still has a lot of open pit life before it goes underground.
Now, the company has invested some 20 billion rand into
Yes.
this project, which shows that they see confidence in South Africa as an investment destination.
Yeah.
What does it mean, do you think, for the future of the diamond industry?
Well, suddenly the diamond industry is perked up. You see 7% more sales in America, and setting off, of course, China strong. So I could see the different atmosphere when I went down to Kimberley, and you spoke to the De Beers people, which is De Beers Consolidated Mines. You could see the smiles on their faces. You could see the body language. It's gone way beyond the absolute collapse of 2008 to 2010, where apparently during that period their sales dropped to like 10% of what they normally were. So in other words, you lost 90% of your sales. So, that's how volatile this business can be and how quickly it can collapse, in the face of the great financial crisis that we had in 2008. People, diamonds were the last thing on their minds. They were trying to survive by selling off assets and all sorts of things. Now suddenly you can see it perk up again, which has given a lot of confidence to that industry. And of course, they study these things very carefully. The De Beers group has been doing this for years. And so they were confident to go ahead with that long-term project well ahead of time, showing confidence in South Africa's regulatory system, showing confidence in South Africa as an investment destination, and showing confidence in South Africa as a place where you can get skills to build this sort of thing. So it's a great boost for us in South Africa that De Beers, which now are concentrated in London really because it's controlled by Anglo having to take the final decision, saying, let's go ahead with this. And, the chairman of De Beers, Sir John Parker, coming out here late November 2013 and actually taking the shovel with Jacob Zuma and taking the first shovel loads where that decline is going down. And it was interesting because you saw the executives with the shovels for a change and the president for the shovels, while the workers sat there looking on and beautifully positioned chairs and quaffing their drinks and having a bit of a giggle while these guys did some work.
Yeah, maybe they found some diamonds.
Yeah. And finding diamonds is incredible because we went into the Harry Oppenheimer house at Kimberley this week where they answered questions about this Venetia, but their main story was the fact that the black economic empowerment side of the De Beers in South Africa, which is the Beers Consolidated Mines, that partner is Ponahalo, and it has luminaries in it like Manny de Picchio, the former premier of the Northern Cape, who is a former worker for De Beers and a former union leader, who gave them quite a hard time during the rough periods, and also Cheryl Carolus, those sort of people involved. And I get the feeling that, what thrills them most is having a broad-based BEE here, because half of it belongs to the workers. There's 15,000 workers. They've got another 3 trusts, and you could see disabled people actually working in Harry Oppenheimer House, because that is one of the trusts that they've got, is disabled. And it was beautiful to be in this building. It's a 14-story building with massive windows, because the sorters of the diamonds want to have this natural light coming through, but not on the northern side, obviously, because they don't want that glare. They put it on the south, but the windows are in interesting angles to get the best light coming through. And opposite these wonderful big windows were these trays where the diamonds had been sorted, and there were 10 of them in this long line, and each section had $1 million worth of diamonds on it. So then you sort of realize how valuable these stones are in different formations along the tables, as they explained to us and allowed us to look at the Eureka diamond, the actual genuine Eureka, the one that they found. And another big diamond we allowed to hold, which I found was impressively cold in temperature. And of course, the security guy had his eye on all of us.
You wouldn't have been able to hide that too easily.
No, you wouldn't be able to hide it too easily. The security is quite good, and you can see why it has to be. because these things are very portable and very valuable. You can have a sort of a R1 billion in your right pocket, you know, as you walk out. So
and that in itself also creates the new technology for X-rays, and as we've seen come out of De Beers.
And so those X-rays now being used in medical situations and in security situations. So we had a lot of technology coming out of there. I wish there was more. I think that maybe it's slowed down a bit, but who knows? You don't often get allowed into the research and development side of things. But we can see that it's still one of the proud points of Kimberley. You know, overlooking Kimberley, this very high building, and it overlooks the Premier's office. And Manny DiPiccio said he was very sort of conscious of the fact that he had all these people looking down on him when he was the Premier, and they sort of knew whoever came to see him. And when he got to the township, they'd say, "Oh, what did that fellow have to say? Yeah, we saw his big car there." And so one can keep an eye. And De Beers is still, they want to keep the soul of De Beers in Kimberley. And it's not easy because, you know, the centre of gravity moves all over the place. Botswana's got this big diamond situation now, but it was quite impressive because this deal that they've done, this black economic deal with Panahale, it has meant that black economic empowerment partner, which has 26% of the mining in South Africa, now also has 26% of the trading of the South African diamonds, which number about 5 million carats a year. And they cock a hoop about this because they've had to wait patiently for some returns on this particular black economic empowerment, because it went underwater. You know, it went underwater with the whole diamond industry, but it's now popping up. And that's why they're so cock a hoop that they've got this extra trading side. But at the same time, they're still going to have to be patient because they are also investors now in Venetia, which is one colossal investment. I mean, it's 20 billion rand. Well, you could say $2 billion, and a great gesture, I think, on the part of Anglo-American and De Beers, but at the same time, they're business people. They can see the future, and they're normally spot on, although they weren't spot on with the great financial crisis in 2008. Nobody was.
Yeah. But thank you very much, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Shannon.
That's it for today. Join us again next week for more news analysis on South Africa's mining industry.